Hi, I'm Brad Farris, and I'm about to have a productive conversation.
With Mike Vardy. Hey, Brad, thanks for joining me on the program. This is a truly collaborative effort right out of the gate.
Indeed.
The one thing that and for anyone who's listening to this podcast like down the line, so if you're not listening to it as it's released, there were moments and times where I actually thought about quitting doing the podcast, or at least in its current iteration. I haven't told anybody that, and by the time this episode comes out, it's probably close to the point where I would have said something. But what's interesting is it often, for me, it just took a different perspective to make that shift to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to do more outreach to find people to talk to as opposed to having it sent my way. And that's when you've been doing 600 plus episodes, you naturally will get pitches and pitches. And I don't want, by the way, I don't want people to stop pitching because I find discovery that way too. But by doing outreach, I can have conversations with folks that I may not otherwise have been exposed to or may not necessarily have found a connection with, which we're going to talk about connection, right out of the gate. However, during our pre-conversation, before we hit record, there was definitely a connection there. So the fact that we made our own version of the introduction, I'm quite happy about. But let's introduce you a bit further. So Brad, for those that aren't familiar with you or your work, can you share a little bit about what you do and maybe not how you got to it, but how you've managed to sustain and stick with it for so long?
That's a great question. So in a short sentence, I have been working with creative service firm owners for about 25 years. For the first 2/3 of that in a management consulting manner, and about the last third of that more in a coaching manner. But doing the same thing, helping that owner to get more out of what they're doing. And by get more out of, that could be money, that could be a bigger organization. It could be just enjoying life more or being able to take a break from their business. One of the things that I would say in sales conversations a lot of times is, when was the last time you took a vacation? And how does your spouse feel about that? And so helping people to free themselves from the roller coaster of running their own business so that they can have a little bit more of a life, whatever that means to them. And I've been doing it for 25 years because I feel like I keep learning more and more. Honestly, my clients keep teaching me different ways to do this and different ways that they've gotten stuck or they've gotten lost in the woods of running their business. And so it's just exciting for me to be the person who's finding that new way of explaining things or opening people's eyes in a different direction.
What I love about that is, and I feel the same way, is perspective. Like, we can't speak from certain perspectives because of who we are, right? And so I find the same thing, not just in when I do coaching as well, but just in these conversations with the members of my membership community. It's that perspective that I think really shines. And I think the other thing that I love that you did, and I want to touch on this, is that question that you asked is a classic, like, pattern breaking thing that people generally don't think about. They're thinking about things in more of maybe, say, a quantitative or very professional kind of aspect, but they're not, like, it's a blend, it's balance, right? And when we talk about balance, it's not 50-50. It ebbs and flows, right? So when you are able to effectively break the pattern with those kind of questions, what is the immediate reaction and response that you find from clients? And then how do they turn that into kind of a longer, better term outcome?
So the initial question of, like, when was the last time you took a vacation? There's often a cloud that comes over their face, so they kind of, there's a shame about it, right? And
they don't understand English kind of thing.
Yes, exactly. But very quickly, I'm not asking that question to make anyone feel bad. What I'm trying to do is to say, listen, that you've put yourself in a situation where you need to be at your best. Right, especially currently, The world is changing. Technology is driving at us. Our employees' desires and needs from us are shifting. You need to be sharp. You need to have all your creative and mental powers at your disposal. You can't do that if you work 100 hours a week. At least 60 of those hours, maybe 70 of those hours, you're not at your best. And so Dan Sullivan has this idea that you earn work days by taking days off. Like it's not worth it for you to work if you haven't rested.
Right.
And so working with people to reposition that, to say, how are you being at your best? And if you're at your best, you don't need to work 100 hours a week. You can get done in 30 or 35 hours what you used to get done in 100. So it's about helping people to be at their best, because that's what this situation is asking for.
I love the fact that we're getting into kind of the quantitative aspect of things. People, the problem I have with productivity as it stands is it's broken, and it's hard to mend, right? Because we have shifted so far towards the quantity of what we do,
Yes.
and the quantity, as opposed to the qualitative output of that. And what you're talking about is that qualitative output that we can't necessarily put KPIs to, and we can't numerically. It's harder to do that, right? So, if someone approaches you to work with you, and you can tell that that's where their head is at. How do you, back to the pattern breaking? I mean, this is obviously one way to do it, but are there other things that you can do to have them see the other side of the coin?
So one of the symptoms that I see is hurry, rush, trying to get things done as quickly as possible, right? And from a productivity standpoint, the faster I get things done, the more I get done, the more productive I am, right?
Yeah.
But the example that I use frequently with people is email. Like, let's say you get to inbox zero, and you get to inbox zero by sending 1 or 2 word replies to half of the emails that came in your inbox. What is the most likely outcome of that 1 or 2 word reply that you just sent? People are going to have questions about it, right?
Yep.
And so you just sent a bunch of emails, and then you get a bunch of emails back. Was that productive? How productive was that?
Well, I think the other thing is the pursuit of inbox zero is a folly anyway, because you send the 2,
crazy.
You send the 2 and 4 more show up, right?
Exactly.
So it's a never ending. It's like a carrot being dangled in front of you, and you're running and running and running, and you run out of steam. And then you're like, well, what about all this other stuff that is I was supposed to do? Oh, well, I guess it's left in the dust, but that's okay, because I got 286 emails done. It's that, it's the concept of, because it's easier for us to grok quantity numbers. We can we can see, taste, touch, like it's there.
Yes.
It's the qualitative stuff that, and presence, like you pointed out, is such an important part of that. Do you think that people who are stuck in this idea of management and managing over leadership and leading, do you think that they lean? It's just an easier thing for them to lean on, is the quantity versus the quality? And how do you not only, again, help them with that, but show them that there is a distinction between a manager and a leader?
So I'm going to come at that question a little sideways here, if that's okay.
Sure.
The thing that's difficult about abandoning inbox zero and saying, I'm not going to answer every email in my inbox, is that then we have to choose.
Right.
Then we have to say, what is the most important thing for me to do with this 260 emails in my inbox, right? And that choosing, allocating resources, is a leadership activity. Leaders say, we have a limited amount of resources. There's an infinite number of things that we can do with those resources. We're going to choose how to spend our resources in the most, in the way that's going to move us closer to our goals. And so managers tend not to have that higher level thinking. They're like, I have a task to do and I need to accomplish that task. And so when faced with 260 emails, the accomplish the task is, I need to answer all those emails. And so the danger is when people who own a business or run a department when we start thinking like managers, because it's easier to open the inbox and say, let's just answer all these.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can stay at that higher level and say, okay, no, actually, what do I need to take the time to answer? And when I'm answering it, how can I write an answer to this email that answers all the questions so that no one has any need to send me another email back? And now the next day, I only have 210 emails in my inbox. And then the next day, I only have 180 and so over time, when you're actually resolving things start to get back into balance.
I think they're what leaders can do that managers struggle with is they can oscillate, right? So a leader can say, like, so for the inbox problem, let's talk about it. It's like you have 268 emails. Okay, let's create some strategies and filters that allow you to better deal with the things that will get us closer to our goals, as opposed to looking things through the lens of all of it, because that's overwhelming, right?
Right.
Because people generally, like, I've done workshops where someone said, I get 100 to 200 emails and they're all things I must do. I'm like, well, who emails you? And the first person they mention is usually the person that matters most. They go, well, my boss. I'm like, okay, do you have a folder set up for your boss? And they're like, what? I'm like, set up a folder for your boss's emails. Well, no, I have folders set up for projects. I'm like, problem with that is projects end, but your boss is perpetual, right? So if you have the boss folder, the biggest thing is you can reply back to your boss by isolating it and then saying, okay, boss, what really matters? Because they're going to tell you, right? They're going to at least give you some indication. I go, just start there. And then, and if you do that, maybe your 200 emails are now 170 emails from everybody, but 30 from your boss. Which ones are you going to check first, right? And so to me, that idea of filtration and the ability to tap into managing is what a leader, someone who is in leadership, can do. How do you help someone, and I'm going to throw a pun in here, anchor themselves in such a way?
Oh, well done.
that they can oscillate in a way that actually serves them as opposed to hinders them.
So let me tell you a story to kind of answer that question. Early in my career, I worked for a company that was owned by a billionaire. And billionaires have lots of ideas. And so they send them to the CEO of their company. And I noticed my boss, the CEO, doing exactly what you were saying, like sliding all the emails from the owner into a folder on his desktop. And I said, you're not replying to his emails? I said, well, the CEO says, well, he doesn't remember half of what he sends to me. And so the second time he asks me about something, then I answer it. But the first time, I absolutely ignore it. Because if I chase all those ghosts, I never get my job done.
Right.
Right. And so he understood that what the billionaire cared more about was that the CEO made money and that the company was on the right trajectory to execute the strategy. He didn't care about his emails getting answered. And so thinking about the grounding or the anchoring is, what are you here to do? And I guarantee it's not answer email. If you answer all your emails, your boss is not going to give you a raise.
Right.
That's not the thing that's going to happen.
What I also appreciate about that is the only way that you can get there, and we're circling back, is to presence. I mean, he had to slow down and stop and pause and go, what does this really mean? Yeah. And unfortunately, most people don't recognize that even though we live in a world that is asking for go, 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 fast, 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 now, now is perpetual as well. We're always in the now if we really think about it that way. But you have to pause to think about it that way. So what are some of the things that you have done that have helped you stay present? And an addendum to that is, what did you try that you thought would help you stay present? but didn't.
Yes. All right. This is a great question. I really appreciate it, Mike. So presence for me is that I am only doing one thing at a time. And so one of the early practices that I did was that if I was on a call with somebody, the only thing on my desktop was my note-taking app and whatever I was using to talk to them on.
Mhm.
And so I turned my email off, I turned the Slack off, everything else is gone so that there's no distractions that can come in and break my focus.
Right.
And so if I'm doing that one thing, then the interesting thing that happens along there is sometimes I think this conversation is boring, right? I need something to entertain my brain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so that is what I'm present to. What I'm present to is we're not talking about the most important things because otherwise I would be interested in this conversation.
Right.
And so what happened, the things that didn't work is that then I would open up Twitter or something to entertain my brain until the person I was talking to got to something interesting. What I learned from that was, no, I can stop the conversation and say, is this the most important thing that we should be talking about?
Mm.
Is there something that is more critical or more crucial that we should be spending our time? Because if not, we should probably go do something else.
Right.
Now, maybe that makes me overly blunt. Maybe I need to find a different way to talk about that. But most of the people that I have that conversation with are like, no, you're right. There is this other thing that we should be talking about. Or, no, I don't need to be in this meeting any more than you do. Whatever the outcome is of that usually is something good. But it's the slowing down and eliminating distractions that allows me to be connected to that kind of what's going on inside me. And so the opposite can happen too, where something will start to tingle and I'll be like, oh, that, like, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Right.
The experimentation part, I think, is really interesting because when you're present, I think you're more willing to experiment because you actually have some time to think like, I'll try this and see if this works with this person.
Yes,
and that can be broached into things like vulnerability, which is a great leadership trait that people often think is, well, he's being too, no, like that's a humanizing thing. And so if you were to say, is this really what we should be like? I hate to interrupt. And it's not you, it's just what we're talking about. Is this the most important thing we should be like? Oh, thank God. Thank God. Okay, well, let's move on. Or you're right. Let's end the call. Or it could very well be, you know what? Maybe I'm not there today. Like something's in the back of my head. So why don't we reschedule? Like there's lots of these things that you can do. But in terms of experimentation, to dovetail back to the addendum, what's something that you tried that just absolutely did not work? Either engaging with someone or on your own where you're like, yeah, I tried this to stay present and there was time leak or attention leak or whatever, or it was just too hard for me to do.
So I mostly started this activity in business conversations. And I thought, oh, this works so great. I could try it with my family too. No, that did not work.
I have tried to get my family to do things that are like related to time crafting and stuff and shared to-do lists. And it's like, you eventually that carrot dangling, you run out of steam. I mean, my son came to me this week, actually, he just started school as we're recording this. It's early September. And he's like, Dad, I want to find I want to be able to track my goals and such because he wants to do certain things with drama and musical. And he looked at me and the first thing, I leaned back and I'm like, all right, he goes, now hold on. Like he was being
exactly.
I don't need it all. This is what I'm looking for. And so by reframing, like he knew going in, he's like, oh, this is Dad's bread and butter. And I don't want to be here for 3 hours and learn about 4 different.
I'm throwing red meat in front of the dog right here.
and so again, it's that I think being present also allows you to not only convey with more clarity, but convey information in a way that can be message received as opposed to the hurried part that you're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. And the like, that's such a great example. Like I had a similar situation with one of my children who asked me about study tools and like how to keep track of notes and stuff like that. And I'm an old, like, if anybody remembers this, like 43 folders and like the whole productivity thing, right?
Oh yeah.
And so, my eyes
Mm.
get big and like, and what I've learned now
Here's
is
my
that
hipster PDA, son. Take it now.
yes, exactly. That when one of those topics comes up that I really feel like I have a lot to contribute to, I can feel in my body like this surge of energy.
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, now's my moment. Like the spotlight is on me. And what I've come to realize is that that is actually a sign that I'm in dangerous territory. Like that is where I lose presence really quickly because I have a script in my head that I could just roll out and I'm not listening or paying attention or being curious. And so when I feel that in my body, I've actually learned to slow down and say, "Oh, tell me more. What kind of
Yeah.
thing are you looking for there?" Right? And so if I can get that energy out, then I can be a much better conversation partner instead of like the fire hose.
That actually dovetails into a really interesting question I wasn't even really going for, but it makes sense. Is body clock and energy stuff, right? Like I'm a night owl. Everyone that's listened to the show for a while knows this. I don't know if you're a night owl, early riser, or somewhere in between. But how how do you find tapping into presence based on your body clock? Like, what do you do? So for me, for example, we're recording this before noon, my time. So for me, I am much better at doing these interviews and conversations earlier in the day, not because I'm at my best, but I can feed off of the other side of the coin. I can feed off of the feed off the energy of the person even through the screen because and that's why we have a pre-conversation and all that stuff because it puts me in a proper state. And frankly, anyone who does this sort of thing, I'm regardless of what you think, it's a performance of sorts. Like there is a
Yeah.
level of performance. So you're kind of getting yourself ready. Now, in the afternoon, as a night owl, I want that time to create. Sometimes it will be involving talking to other people, but that's my time to write, to think, to do all that stuff because that's when I'm at my best. What what do you find for yourself, and how important do you think it is for a leader to know this so that they can stay present and tap into presence in a way that works for them?
Yeah. I'm the opposite. I'm an early morning person. I get up between 5 and 6,
Hmm.
and I try, um I try to do something productive right out of bed. Like, if I'm writing, if I'm in a writing, cycle, I will write first thing before I go to the gym, before I brush my teeth, whatever. I wanna take that early morning energy where my head isn't distracted and put it into that project. But I also wanna get a workout early in the day.
Mm.
I recently, had a shoulder injury, and so I couldn't go to the gym for 2 months, and I noticed my mental health decline just the longer away from the gym that I got, and so I know that I need to do that to kind of get me into the workday, and by 4 o'clock, 4:30, I'm I'm pretty much toast, like, there's not much left for me to do. Now, that's the thing that I learned because I audited it. I started paying attention. I would take a calendar and I would kind of mark how much energy, kind of a plus minus zero kind of thing all the way through the day. And I started noticing that I did my best creative work early and that later in the day, maybe I need to go for a walk or do something, and there are things that can reset that. Like going for if at 1:30 I go for a walk, I can come back and get back into something.
Hmm.
So, but you have to learn that for yourself over time. I think, I would never do a late afternoon writing session. That would be a snooze fest.
Right, but you what's interesting is you used quantitative data
Yes.
for qualitative purposes, right? Like you said, okay, how do I know that? Because you have to justify the feeling, right? You have to emotion and logic are like those polar, and we all know if you are on one polar opposite or the other, there's something wrong with dwelling so far. Reason lies in the middle. So you're like, okay, well, how do I be reasoned about this? Oh, I know. I will plus minus zero. Oh, well, look, I've done this over a 3-month period, a month long, whatever that is, whatever that needs to be for you. Okay, so this is what it's like. And then if you do it right, which I'm sure you did, you might even say, okay, well, what days of the week am
Yeah.
I better off at? Like, am I going to do this on a Friday? Probably not. I mean, when I was raising when the kids were home with me, my son before he went to school, we had I was at home taking care of him. So my deep work day used to be like a Friday because, well, hey, you know what? Like but once he went into school, I'm like, why am I so tired on a Friday now? Well, because my deep work day moved, so I had to move it, right? But the only way you get that is through that. This is where measuring can help, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and like those theme days, when I found the idea of theming days, not having the switching costs of going back and forth between a client call and then doing a writing project and then working on my accounting, like that just was magical, that I can just kind of lock into one way of being for a whole day. It really opened up some good things for me.
Well, and it's an overarching focus too. It doesn't mean that you're absolutely doing that. Like this is not the day I would normally record a podcast. It's just I also can't say, okay, well, this is the only day because I'm working with someone else. And that's what you have to keep in mind. But once we're done here, I go back to my daily theme and I'm like, okay, well, what are the things that I've categorized as such? So I'm using quantitative metrics to help me figure out how to get the best quality output. And I want to go back to the vacation piece because
before we do that, can I just throw something in on the energy thing?
Absolutely.
I think managing energy is critical.
Sure.
And one of the things that I found when I did my plus minus zero is that caffeine screws up the data.
Yep.
And I got to I was having a day where in the afternoon I was thinking I'm really tired. I definitely need a cup of coffee. And then there was a little voice in my head that said, "No, when you're really tired, you need to sleep." I thought that was like whoa, that's an interesting idea.
Yep. Yeah.
And
this is
after
coffee.
That, I quit.
I'm drinking coffee right now, but it's decaf. I mean, it's still early for me. And now that decaf has gotten better and better. And the other thing you could do, and I mean, I know and again, you figure this out for yourself, is like you can go for a walk, like you mentioned. You don't necessarily need to sleep. You can go for a walk. Now, again, that will
just
only
change your state.
Exactly. And that doesn't mean just turn your sitting desk into a standing desk either, because that maybe changes your position, but certainly not the other way. Let's talk about vacationing again, because again, living in Canada, I went through your LinkedIn, which we'll of course link to in the show notes, and you spent some time in Canada pretty recently. So can you share a bit about that and what you wrote about? We'll link to that LinkedIn piece in the episode notes.
So one of my friends in the neighborhood here invited me on a fishing trip up to the middle of Canada. And it was a trip that the host of the trip had been taking since he was a kid. Like it was kind of a big deal to get invited onto this trip. And I was excited because my dad and I did a lot of fishing and I haven't fished for a number of years. And so we got up there and it was great. Like beautiful place, great guys, and got out on the water, caught some fish the first day. And then the second day, the first place we went to fish, I threw my first cast. I put my best lure on. I threw my first cast and I lost the grip on my pole and the pole went in the lake.
Yeah.
And so what do you do when you throw your pole in the lake? Like I went in the lake and went looking for it. And we spent like an hour looking for the pole, did not find the pole. My fishing partner, as a joke, had brought one of those little kid poles with this like a foot long with the Batman logos all over it. So I fished with that for the rest of the day. But then coming home that night it was a long lake. So we're riding across the lake on the boat and, my buddy was steering and it was a long trip. We were following another boat and he kind of lost focus and the boat went up on the wake of the boat in front of us. And when it went across, it basically threw me out of the boat. And as one does, I tried to hold on to the boat unsuccessfully, but that holding on meant that I dislocated my shoulder.
Right.
So I'm in Canada. We had spent the money and traveled. We drove literally 14 hours to get here. And second day of fishing, I dislocated my shoulder. And this was not my best day, right? Like I was kind of pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've dislocated your shoulder, it hurts like hell. So that didn't help either.
Sure.
Um,
Is this where I insert a healthcare question, or should we just keep moving on?
well, the healthcare question is interesting because we eventually we decided we needed to go to the hospital, and the hospital was like 12 miles down a dirt road, which is really not fun with a dislocated shoulder.
No.
And I get there, and everyone speaks French, and they did not know what to do with an American, so they just fixed my shoulder, and I don't think they even wrote down that I was there. They were just the nicest
you were in
people.
the remote part of, I mean, if you were in there, like you said, Ontario, you were probably in a part of Ontario that blended with Quebec. Like there's that crossover. Or actually, Manitoba does have bilingualism. I mean, all of Canada is bilingual, but the population in particular. And yeah, you were definitely in an, I mean, there's certain pockets of Canada, not unlike the US, where it's like once you reach a certain area, it's like there's good luck finding people, let alone a hospital.
Yeah. So then the next morning I had to go back to the hospital, but on the way out, we left really early, and on the way out on the road, that same 12-mile dirt road, we saw moose. And I have been looking for moose. I've been looking for moose for 20 years. And there they were standing in the middle of the road. And it was amazing. Like if you've ever been in the presence of a moose, like awe is the only word that comes to mind. Like it's amazing.
You can't even, like you've seen videos and all that stuff. And I've seen bears and all that, but a moose, like it's just, imagine an Imperial Walker from Star Wars. Like that's literally what they are. And they're that big, like they're huge and they're massive and they know it.
Yes. They have nothing to care about you. Like this one was standing in the middle of the road and he just stared at us and we stared at him. And when the moose wanted to leave, then we could go. You know, there was no encouraging the moose to go.
When my wife's from the Yukon, and when we first started dating, I was invited to go up to. So we drove up to the Yukon from basically Vancouver. We took the ferry over. Now I'm from the Toronto area, and I've driven all the way to the east coast of Canada. So for that, that's like I could do that in 14 hours. I looked at a map and thought, oh well, they're about equidistant. They are not. It was a 3-day trip, and on day two, maybe day 3, we were driving along the highway, like I think it was the Alaskan highway, and a herd of bison was crossing it. And I looked at my wife. I'm like, well, what do we do? She goes, what do you mean? We have to wait. I'm like, till when? She goes, till they decide to move. Like
yes, exactly.
And we weren't there very long. They were doing their whole caravan thing, but I had never seen one in the wild, let alone a herd. And I mean, we did see a moose on that trip as well as like, I mean, that drive is majestic and
it's amazing.
There's a reason that there's a lot of accidents on that highway. It's because, and this goes back to the speed thing, is you can go really fast, but they could jump out. Like a moose can walk out and they're not slow. Elk, all of that stuff. So, you know, speed, they say speed kills. It can in more ways than one. And again, that presence of knowing, all right, you know, I have the ability to go as fast as I want, but there's a reason that this must exist. It's kind of like, you know, when someone says, and this is happening in another part of Canada right now, where they're saying we should get rid of the speed cameras. Because if you're going 5 or 10 over, who cares? It just seems like a cash grab. I'm like, well, if you say that, then everyone's going to think that those signs don't matter. And therefore, now all of a sudden you've increased the risk of people speeding, which can lead to accidents. So you have to be thoughtful about that. And I think, again, it goes back to, and this is a leader, by the way, that said this, presence. Like, okay, what I say and what I do matters.
Yes.
So as we get close to wrapping up, for those that either want, let's go for those that want to embrace leadership, maybe they're in a leadership role already, or they are heading in that direction. What is one thing that they can do to start to cultivate this idea of presence so that they can maybe make that shift or help nurture their own ability to lead?
The thing that I find that's a superpower for helping you to level up your leadership is reflection. And it's something that sadly we don't do that much of. And so
Mm.
there's two reflective practices I would invite you into. One is at the end of every day, and it doesn't take long. Maybe you're walking from your desk to your car, or if you're working at home, while you're shutting down all your tools, just ask yourself the question, if I had this day to live over again, what would I do differently? And that's a really powerful question to just kind of review your day. And oftentimes I'll notice, I was kind of short with that person, or that interaction did not go the way I thought it would go. I think I could have done better there. Right. And so just a little noticing and paying attention. You don't have to figure out what's going on or make a new plan. Just notice. And pretty soon the patterns will emerge and you'll naturally start to say, okay, these type of situations I need a different answer for. Right. And then for me, it's on a Friday. I have 4 or 5 questions that I ask myself every Friday, and they're related to whatever goals or initiatives, or I call them North Stars, but are there some things that you're trying to accomplish in life? Every Friday, just stop and ask yourself, how am I doing on those things? How am I, for me, I'm trying to recognize that I always have access to peace. So in every situation, I can be peaceful. And so every Friday I say, when did you find peace this week? And that reflection allows me to stay in touch with those goals, to be aware of the things that I've already decided for myself are things that I want to move toward. And again, I notice the patterns. I'm kind of writing down the same things over and over again. What do I want to do about that? And so I would just start with a reflection practice, something at the end of the day, something a little bit longer at the end of the week, and see what happens just by noticing.
Brad, this has been a great conversation. Definitely want to have a follow up
All right.
because this has been great. Where can people keep up with the work that you're doing and learn more about you?
The best place is anchoradvisors.com. That's my home base on the internet. Also, LinkedIn.com/Brad Farris. I post there pretty intermittently, but the best place is to go to Anchor Advisors, and there are some assessments you can take. One that I think you can find on the homepage, but if you search for it, for sure you can, is called the Self-Leadership Assessment. And it helps you to recognize, where are you doing a good job leading yourself? Because leading yourself is the first step to leading others. And so how are you maintaining your own balance, energy, perspective, mindfulness? And it's just an 8-question, 10-question survey. It takes 5 minutes. You get the results right away. You don't have to give me an email address. It's just there to help you.
Brad, thanks for having a productive conversation with me today.
Yeah, this has been fun.